when I walked out of prison at the age of 40, I had literally a plan on paper of what I was going to do, how I was going to start my own business, how I was going to start my life in general. The goal was to work for a year or two to just start learning again the remodeling trade. I opened the phone book and I found 3 remodeling companies. 2 of them gave me a job. 1 month after I got hired, I got fired. I said, you know what, I'm just going to start my own business. In the church, there wasn't anybody that was building a business.
Basically, there's no spiritual reference at church. How do we do this?
Yes. I was always trying to find help outside of the church. And that didn't lead me in the right direction. Number 1 is how you see money. Number 2 is how you... The reason I kept moving forward, and still am, is because I never really...
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Kingdom Prophets, where we feature real life stories of those that have experienced the power of Jesus Christ, have been restored, and now are prospering with the purpose, being profitable for the kingdom of God. Today I'm here with Orlando Salinas. How you doing, Orlando?
We're doing well, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you for being here with us. We really appreciate that. Today we're going to be talking about Orlando's story. Orlando has a powerful testimony. Orlando's been a husband for 36 years. He has 4 children, 9 grandchildren. He is the CEO and founder of CQR Group, and that's a remodeling company. He's been doing that for over 38 years. Started as a 25-year-old, and he is also the founder and president of a nonprofit. This is the Houston Change Foundation. He's been doing that for over 13 years, and Orlando has built that up, has been very effective helping men and women re-enter back into society. And he is also an international speaker, now doing that for 10 years. And so, did I get all that right, Orlando?
Sort of.
Yeah. All right, you can correct me if I was wrong on anything there. But any other highlights that I didn't mention that you would like to mention?
No, that's pretty much the story.
Well, that's awesome. One of the reasons that I want to sit down and talk with you today is because of all these accomplishments. There's men that are trying to build businesses, be effective. And by looking at your highlights here, we can see that you've been effective in so many areas, as a father, a husband, a leader. You've been involved in your church, for many years. And so I want to start talking about the beginning stages of your life, though. People can hear this and say, man, you're just you're a home run hitter.
Yeah, it sounds really cool.
Yeah. And so let's talk about this a little bit. You didn't grow up coming to church. You didn't grow up in a family that owned businesses or anything like that. And so share a little bit about, your upbringing, where you started.
I grew up in a very small town. I was a cowboy when I was young.
Yeah.
Yeah. Had 2 little horses, ponies. So I lived in El Monte, in
the outskirts of town.
Both my parents worked. They were just regular workers. My dad worked in a restaurant, my mom in a factory. And so they were never around, so I was always on my own. That's all I remember when I was young. But I had started smoking weed and I was like 13 or something.
In the small town?
In the small town.
All right.
That's what I remember. But at the age of 15, we moved to the big city, Edinburgh, Texas.
Yeah.
And that's when it started going the wrong way. I mean, just to get right into my story, by the time I'm 17, I'm already on my way to prison.
You said you're 17, you're on your way to prison. You obviously were a drug addict, around, you're already developing that, that type of lifestyle. What would you say was the biggest determining factor that led you down that road?
I think the biggest determining factor was that my parents didn't know how to guide me, which I think is a big stumbling block for many parents. We don't know exactly what to tell our kids. But my father definitely didn't know. He was an alcoholic, and he only spoke to me when he was drinking. I never heard advice from my dad other than when he was drinking. Never. And so then, out of curiosity, not really having any boundaries, if you may, in my home, I just kind of did whatever I wanted to do. So I started smoking weed and I started stealing just out of curiosity. I just convinced my friends to steal with me, and we got in trouble really quick.
Yeah.
So,
And so you went to prison for the first time when you were 17. How long did you go for, and what was that for?
well, I know it sounds really bad, but I went for several things. I went for burglary of a building, burglary of a habitation, escape, aggravated robbery, and a murder charge.
So you go when you're 17, and how long did you serve that time?
Well, they gave me a 20-year sentence. There's a lot involved there, but ultimately it was a 20-year sentence. And I spent 6.5 years in prison.
You're 17 years old and you're in prison, and they give you a 20-year sentence. You spend 6.5 years in prison. So for sure, you weren't experiencing like summer camp or anything like that.
No, it wasn't. I don't think we have time to go into it. It's just really, really bad scene.
Yeah.
Really, really.
Yeah.
It was in 1982. From 1980 to 1987 is when I was in prison, and Texas prisons were not good. There was a point there that I just thought I was going to die in prison. I mean, it was that rough. It was really, really, really tough. So I grew up really quick, put tattoos all over myself, became this bad dude, vato loco forever, because I had to do that or being taken advantage of. That's just how it was. It was either or. And so then I was one of those gun-ho kind of guys willing to die for my beliefs, for my friends, for my homeboys, so it was really, really, really tough. So,
Yeah.
but I made it through.
Wow.
I was released when I was 24.
So I think everybody would like to know or will assume, you're so young, you served this sentence. You just gave away 8 years of your life or 7 years of your life. You got out of prison and you said, you know what? I'm going to be different. I'm going to do different. And that's when you started to strive to become better, right?
Actually, things got worse because I did want to do that. But although I was in prison for 6.5 years, for more than half of that time, I was just a thug in prison, and But I did meet Jesus Christ.
So you're how old when you?
I am in prison for about 3 years.
So you're about 20 years old.
And I had never gone to church. I had never wanted to go to church. I didn't care about church. I was mad at God. I was just a confused young man because I didn't understand why life had treated me the way it had. I was just confused and mad. And so I didn't want to go to church, didn't go to church. But one day I got invited to a church. Just to make a long story short, for the first time I heard the gospel, gave my life to Jesus Christ. I'm about, 21 by that time. So for 2.5 years, I became this on fire Christian in prison. And because I was a well-known, respected person in prison, they kind of people just freaked out, like, what in the world? And I tell people when I go preach, I was a devil-stomping, devil-chasing, Holy Ghost-filled, on fire, tongue-speaking Christian, because that's the kind of influence that there was there in this particular time. Yeah. And so then I really met Jesus Christ, the miracle worker. And the reason I'm telling you that is because it's going to come into play here in a minute in my future. Yeah. Because although I gave my life to Jesus, like many people, when I walked out of prison, I left Jesus
in prison. Yeah.
So,
you're an influential person.
Mm-hmm.
You feel that you've always been, God's always kind of giving you that skill or talent or whatever to help to influence people?
Yes. I believe that my father had a third grade education. He didn't know how to read or write, but he was a very charismatic person. But when he was drinking,
there needed to be an added element.
Yeah. And so then he could sing, he could speak. He was really engaged in politics. Yeah. So he as here in the Valley, how they do it, pachangas and it. Well, he was that kind of guy. Yeah. He would be with the sheriffs or the DAs or. Yeah. But in any case, my point is, I think I got that from him. Yeah. I was always being willing to be a leader, being willing to be up front, being willing to be the first. And so then because I had that in me, that was and because of the prison, the way it worked was gangs and being affiliated and different things, I naturally fell into that.
Yeah.
And so then that's why when I say that I thought I was going to die in prison because I was putting my life out there. I said, whatever it takes, I'll do it. And so, yes, I think I had that certain gift, if you may, of being willing to be out there.
Yeah. So you said you got out of prison, and the idea was, hey, you're going to change your life.
No, I had a plan. I was going to go to school. I had gone to air conditioning refrigeration in prison. I took a trade in prison. I was trying to do right. Yeah. And I said to myself, when I get out, I'm going to go to school again for air conditioning. And that way I'll be really good at this and have a good job.
Yeah.
But that didn't work out.
And so here you want to change. You have this plan to change.
Yeah.
What would you say was, looking back, what would you say is like, this is what I was missing. This is why my plan didn't work.
Well, my plan didn't work was because I backslid from Christ. That's why my plan didn't work. Because your plans never work, apart from God. It just doesn't. Now as I look back, right? That was the key ingredient, right?
Yeah.
We can say, well, it was this, it was that. But the idea is that when you're left to yourself, because once you let go of God, Jesus Christ, then you give yourself the to do whatever you want to do.
Right.
That we're sinful beings, so naturally you lean towards. And of course, the devil didn't like that I was a Christian in the first place. So I tell people all the time, I backslid. I walked out of prison, a backsliding, confused Christian, and the devil was waiting for me.
So now you said you're shooting up. You're 24. You're shooting up, which is basically you took drug addiction to the next level.
Yes.
And then what happens? Where do you go from?
Well, I had a friend that was also a Christian. He was my mentor in prison, and he had told me that we became really good friends in prison. So he was from Houston, and he got out before I did, and he said he was going to start a remodeling company. And he had told me, you can come to Houston, and we can become partners, and I'll teach you the remodeling trade.
Oh.
And so then when he got out, sure enough, he started his own business. And so when I got out, I waited a year in McAllen, Texas, where I lived, in Edinburgh. And then I went to Houston. But by the time I went to Houston, I was already a straight-up drug addict. Yeah. But I did go with my friend, and I did join him, and he taught me the remodeling business. He had backslidden himself. So then he didn't care if I drank or did drugs, as long as I worked. And I was a hard worker. So that's why I tell people all the time, there's plenty of drug addicts in the remodeling and construction world.
Yeah.
They're hard workers, but they work for drugs and alcohol.
So after living in Houston, you've been out for a year, and so you're learning the remodeling business. And so what happens from there?
Well, I'm just I tell people I was just a loser drug addict.
Yeah.
Because now that I look back, all I did was live to do drugs.
So how many years did you live in that lifestyle where you're learning the remodeling business, you're working, but you're still dealing with your drug addiction?
For 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
From the age of 24 to the age of 34.
And what happened at 34?
Well, things got worse.
Yeah.
Well, before I tell you that, let me tell you this. Okay. I got married at the age of 26.
Okay.
To my young, beautiful wife who had no idea what she was getting herself into.
Okay, so start again. At the age of 26, you get married. So start again. Give us that line.
So at the age of 24, I get out of prison.
Yeah.
Put a needle in my arm. 3 months upon my release from prison. Go to Houston and start and get into the remodeling business, but I'm still a drug addict. At the age of 25. At the age of 26, I met my wife. Got married. At the age of 28, I'm married with my wife, and I get shot at 9 times trying to steal cocaine. Wow. And by the time, I'm so lost in drug addiction, we moved back to the valley when my wife was pregnant. And now I'm living with my mom because now we have 2 daughters, a 6-month-old daughter and one that's going to be 4 years old. And at the age of 34 years old, 10 years past now, I was so lost and so drug addicted by this time. I had nowhere to go, no money, no car, no tools. No, the only reason I was living with my mom is because she felt sorry for my wife. And on January 18th, which is my story, my pivoting point, in 1997, I did the unthinkable and robbed the store again for one more hit of cocaine on my daughter's 4th birthday.
10 years struggling with drug addiction, and it didn't get better. It only got worse.
It never does. Never does. It's a good point to point out. Drug addicts never gets better. It always gets worse.
And so your life got worse until the point where you did something that was so bad that you went back to jail.
You're right.
And so what was that like? What was that experience like?
When you do things, drug addiction makes you do things that you would not normally do. Your mind is hijacked. Your spirit is hijacked. Everything is hijacked. I won't go into all that, but my point is, I wanted to change, but I couldn't. And so then when it all broke for me, I was at a point where I wanted to I didn't care no more. I knew I was a loser father, a loser husband, a loser son, just a loser. That's how I felt. That's what I saw. I was just a drug addict. And so then when I decided to rob a store, it just happened to be my daughter's 4th birthday. And that night I was just so lost and out of control that I was just willing to do whatever it took. But I remember thinking to myself, I'm just going to kill my worthless self. I'm no good. Because I knew that if I got caught, I'm going to prison for the rest of my life. And I just didn't see no hope. I wanted to change. I even went to church 2 months before this happened. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that here in a minute, but I just couldn't.
Yeah.
And so then on January 18th, 1997, I robbed the store for one more hit, my daughter's 4th birthday. And I remember it was just a devastating time of my family's life. And I guess I have to share this part of the story. That day, it was 8:00 in the morning by the time I'm in jail. And I'm just devastated, not because I was afraid to go to prison, because of what I've done and what was about to unfold in my family. I just destroyed my family and my 2 daughters. I didn't want to call home because I knew it was my daughter's 4th birthday. In any case, at 5:00 that afternoon, I made that infamous call, and this was where everything turned around for me in my mind. Because I knew about Jesus. I've never forgotten about Jesus. I knew I needed a miracle. And I also knew, I only knew one miracle worker. His name was Jesus. And so then I remember calling my wife, 5:00 that afternoon, and I told her, babe, I'm not coming home anymore. I really messed up this time. And the next thing I hear is this little voice that said, Daddy, Daddy, today was my birthday. And you weren't here. Are you coming now? And so then this is an important part why I'm sharing it is because this is where, for me, it all came crumbling down, not only physically, but emotionally and spiritually and everything you can think of. Because I remember just dropping to my knees in that prison cell and just saying, God, what have I done? What have I done? So it's over. And so literally I had to make a choice. And I said to myself, do I kill my worthless self? Or do I choose to believe in the impossible? And, I'm so glad that I'm able to share my story all over the world now because I don't want to forget this. I never want to forget that. And I remember thinking to myself, Jesus said, if you believe, all things are possible if you believe. Yeah. And I wasn't afraid of prison, Robert. I wasn't afraid of, because I tell people, any idiot can do time.
Yeah.
Any fool can pull a trigger. Anybody can put a needle in their arms, drink till they drop. But to change your life, How do you do that? And then from this point, I remember just dropping to my knees and telling God, you know what? Please take care of my family. I don't deserve mercy. I don't deserve grace. I don't deserve jack. I don't care if I go to prison for the rest of my life, but please just help me change that monster in the mirror. And that's where I started at the age of 34 years old on my daughter's 4th birthday. And that's the short version.
Yeah. No, it's a very intense.
It was really intense.
Yeah.
It was super intense.
You're in that moment, and whatever you decide right there is
Changes everything.
Is what's going to make the difference if you're going to rebuild your life
Or die in prison.
Die in prison. The only thing at that moment, at your worst time, that you had, I guess, that helped you to make that decision, is that you had this one scripture you could hold on to.
Well, actually, it was several, but they all had to believe was the impossible.
Everything had to do with, are you going to believe in God to change your situation?
That's it.
To help you, right? I mean, and that's super encouraging for, for anybody that has a family member that is so lost, that is hopeless. Like, you've already written them off.
Yep.
Some of us, whatever, it could be children, it could be spouse, it could be, brother, but that's awesome to know that if they at least know the truth, if they at least have some experience with Jesus, that God can, at their worst time, that God can help them. Wow. So, okay. Now you said, you know what? I'm going to take this little bit of God's word, and I'm just going to, that's what I'm going to choose to do. Somehow, some way, God's going to help me. You're 34 years old, and now you're going back to prison.
Going back to prison.
For another...
They gave me 6.5 years, is what they did. But there's so much involved there. Yeah. Because I had a judge that wanted to send me to prison for the rest of my life. I was on parole. All my charges, I was indicted on a first-degree felony and a habitual indictment. Most people won't understand that. Let me just give you
an idea of what that means.
What that means is the next higher charge is capital murder. I mean, I'm just way up there.
Wow.
And the judge gives me 6.5 years. I tell people, some people call it luck.
Yeah.
But when that happened, man, it just I don't know why it happened to me. But that day that I called my wife, I literally dedicated my life to Christ. And I was serious. I didn't expect nothing from God. Nothing. Because at that point in my life, for most drug addicts, you finally understand that everything that happens to you is nobody's fault except yourself, your own. I understood that very clearly. And if somebody doesn't understand that, or a drug addict doesn't come to that conclusion, they're not ready to change it.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. Yeah. Unless you take 100% responsibility for your life, which I did, I said, this is my doing. I put myself here. It's not my mother, it's not my father, it's not my sister, not my brother. It wasn't because I was left alone when I was young. It was my fault.
Yeah.
I'm the one that messed up. Period. And the reason I point this out, Robert, is because my number one goal now, after they gave me that 6.5 years at the age of 34, was to find out, how do I change my life?
Yeah.
That was it. I already knew about Jesus. Jesus already proved himself to be God already. But what's wrong with me? Why can why am I so crazy? Why am I so twisted? Why? And that's why I'm able to do what I do today, which we'll probably get into, because I started from day one to figure out what is my problem.
Yeah.
And I went back to prison for 6.5 years. I tell people I was one happy inmate.
Yeah.
Really happy. Well, the judge wanted to give me no less than 25. No less than 25. And so then
6.5 years was
6.5 years was a piece of cake for me. Not for my wife, she'd say she has another story, but
yeah,
gotta hear her story. But for me, it was like 6.5 years. Man, I can do that sitting on the toilet.
Yeah.
But
so you go back to prison, 6.5 years. Okay, so
as a Christian.
as a Christian, so you, if we talk about your lowest point, some people say the best thing about hitting rock bottom is that rock bottom is pretty solid to build from, right? That's the base that you build from.
Really good base.
Yeah. So when we talk about rock bottom for you, would you say rock bottom was that moment where you're in the prison, you went to prison or you went to jail for that, crime that you did, and you're speaking to your daughter, you make that decision, you say, what, God, I believe you can help me. Is that rock bottom for you?
Oh, that was it. Yeah,
Okay.
that was it. That was it. I've had other bottoms, but that's
Okay.
the
So then you go to prison for the 6.5 years, and now you use that time to start to rebuild. Would you say that?
that's exactly what I did.
And so during that time, what did you do to help you to start rebuilding?
Okay. So the first thing I did was rededicate my life to Christ. I tell people that when I left prison the first time at 24, I walked out confused and backslidden. Well, I'm not confused anymore.
You know exactly what's going on.
I know exactly what's going on. There's one enemy and one God.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And there's only one miracle worker, and his name is Jesus. That's it.
Yeah.
Whether I'm right or wrong, that's what I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't think I'm wrong, but either way, that's
Things are
my
pretty
mindset.
clear.
They're very clear. And so then that never was ever an issue ever again. My issue was, well, what do I do? How do I change? And so then what started helping me was, number one, I started reading my Bible. But the second thing that started helping me, which was a major deal, was I started reading.
Okay.
And reading is what really, really helped me expand not only my vocabulary, which still isn't that great, but my mindset.
Yeah.
And I was able to start seeing things in a whole different manner.
Yeah.
Reading was what really, really started me on a new journey.
When you talk about mindset, the picture I get or the imagery is now you're able to see maybe that you could have a different capacity or a larger capacity or ability to do more than what you thought you could do before. Is that kind of what you mean by that?
Yes. So let me give you an example. The reason I started reading was because I wanted to, because when I got to prison, my goal was to get a college degree. Because I said, well, I have time, I get a college degree, get out and get a good job.
Right.
So, but when I got to prison, I found out that I wasn't going to be able to get into college for another 2 years. And so then in my mind, I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm not going to wait 2 years. I got to do something. So what I did is I started going to the prison library.
Yeah.
And I started reading. I said to myself, well, let me at least start educating myself because I wanted to improve my vocabulary. I wanted to learn about whatever. So I started reading. Well, I actually started reading books on marriage. I started reading books on raising kids. I started reading book on but those two really is where I started.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a better husband. I wanted to be a better father. I wanted to be a better person. Yeah. My first book was Awaken the Giant Within by Anthony Robbins. So I found that book because I was looking for something to read, and just the name alone caught my attention. Awaken the Giant Within. And I always felt like there's something in me that... And so then this is the first time that I'm introduced to something called personal growth and personal change, personal development.
Yeah.
Never even heard that word before. And I read that book, and this guy talked about, man, you can start from nothing and become great. Yeah. And that just blew me away. I said, really? Well, and the thing is, Robert, I didn't know how this crazy drug addict person could ever accomplish anything. Yeah. You have to understand my mindset.
Yeah.
Yes, I know God loves me. Yes, I know God forgave me. Yes. Yeah. But what can I do? I'm just a loser drug addict.
Yeah.
But that book helped me understand that I didn't have to think that way anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's the first book that opened my mind. And from then on, I started looking for more books like this.
That's interesting you say that because, one of the things that I, try to teach or help people understand is that growing in knowledge is a choice. It's not something that anybody can give to you.
No.
You can go to school, get the best formal education, right? But you're still not going to learn some principal things of life that can help you to grow and develop and become successful, And so that's interesting that you point that out, that was one of the main things that you did at the beginning is you started expanding your knowledge, and that's awesome. And so you're there, now you're reading, you want to change, you have desire, right? You talk about that a lot. You have the desire to change and you're looking for these things. What were some other things that you felt were the building blocks to put you on the right path?
I've been told that sometimes I give books and personal growth too much credit. In terms of, like when I speak to pastors and stuff, it's Jesus. And yes, of course it's Jesus. I had Jesus in my heart, but if you don't read the book, if you don't read his Bible, you're not going to learn anything.
Right.
You have to read the Bible. And I've learned that you have to read in order to be able to, you guide or gauge everything from the Bible, biblical principles, but you have to expand your understanding. And the only way to do that is through preaching, through reading, and through education of your own self.
Yeah, self-educate. Yeah.
And so then I started reading book after book. And that's when I got another book from Anthony Robbins. I got another book from Zig Ziglar.
So you're learning, you're growing. And when did the idea come to your mind to say, hey, you know what? I want to start a business. I want to be a business owner.
It's a good question. I'm reading, I'm learning, right? And so then a lot of people that the examples that they give in these books are business people. So I said, you know what? Let me look for books on business. And so now I start looking for books on business. And here's a funny story. One of my favorite stories. So I'm reading about business, right? And there's not very many in business. I read business management. And by the way, I carried a dictionary everywhere I went because I didn't understand a lot of words.
What do you mean you carried a dictionary in prison?
In prison, yeah, because I bought one in the commissary.
So you said everywhere you went, like you go to lunch, you take your dictionary with you.
I had a book and a dictionary everywhere I went. And well, you know what? I'm glad you pointed this out because this is really, really important. People don't believe me, but I literally carried a book and a dictionary everywhere I went. Because in prison, Robert, every time you're going somewhere, there's always a waiting period. You go to the shower, first you go to the day room, you wait there for I don't know how long, then you go to the shower. And so then I hated to waste time. In my mind, I did not want to waste time. I didn't have time to waste. And this is my mentality. Where I got that from, I don't know. Yeah. But I said, I only have 6.5 years. And some people think that, wow, that's a short time. Yeah, I'm getting out at 40. And I know this in my mind. But anyway, so because there's always a waiting period in prison, I'd sit down and read. Literally. I didn't understand a word. I'd look it up. Wow. So that I was doing right there, that really helped me a lot. I didn't realize what I was doing.
Yeah.
I was literally like, it was powerful. At the time, I didn't think it was that powerful. I'm just doing my little thing.
No, it's powerful when you think about having a sense of urgency, right? That's key. We all get the same amount of time, but in a day. But what do we do with it, right? How do we maximize our time?
So back to the funny story I was going to tell you. So I'm looking for a book on business, and I find this little orange book way at the bottom and I'm trying to read it. It says it was entrepreneur. But I had no idea what that word meant. So I looked it up.
You pulled up the dictionary.
Entrepreneurship. But then I turned it around and said, The Complete Idiot's Guide to Starting Your Own Business. That's it. That's me.
I was going to say, did that scream out to you?
That's great. It screamed out to me in a way that you just don't know. That book right there, Robert.
Yeah.
Because of that book, I have my business, CQR Kitchen in the back.
Yeah.
Because of that book. Because that book, can I share a little bit more? Because that book, when I got it, it had a front page. It had a heart.
Did it have pictures in it?
It did. It had little graphs. I said, man, this is for me right here. And But this first page, you have your page, and then one page, that's hard paper,
Yeah.
like cardboard, and that one cardboard page said, before you read this book, take this little quiz, and it asked you a lot of questions about business. And the kind of questions it asked was, are you willing to work hard? Are you willing to work 80-hour weeks? Are you willing to work without getting paid? But I answered yes to all of them. I said, well, I mean, I'm in prison. I don't have nothing to lose.
You don't get paid for your time anyway.
Yeah, I don't get paid. I said, I'm doing it already,
Yeah.
And
That's great.
and this kind of stuff. I mean, I believe now as I look back, it's all God just guiding me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I said, man, in that book, brother, it taught me how to build a business plan. I had no idea what that even was.
Yeah.
I literally built a business plan for my business.
In prison.
I came up with the name of this name right here, in prison.
Wow.
I came up with an idea for an ad. I came up with all kinds of, because of that book.
Maybe we'll put that book in the link.
Complete
below.
Idiot's Guide to Starting Your Own Business.
I'm interested. I want to read it now.
Well, now they have a bunch of them. The Dummies Guide to this.
Yeah.
Now it's the Dummies Guide to this.
No, but I want to read that one, the orange book. So that's what inspired you to say, you know what?
Oh yeah, that launched me.
I'm gonna be a business owner.
I'm gonna be an entrepreneur.
You're gonna be an entrepreneur. You knew how to say it now.
I knew how to say it now.
And what it meant. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. So then, like you mentioned, you get out of prison at the age of 40. You know, I find that so mind blowing.
Mind blows me.
You're coming out of prison. You're 40. You have this desire, this ambition to start a business. You know.
Oh yeah, no, I'm on fire.
When I got saved, I was 22, and I said, you know, when I started, learning about business and wanting to be involved in business, I said I wanted to retire at the age of 40. It's hilarious that you're coming out of prison saying, I want to start my business at the age of 40.
Yeah.
Wow. So what was that like? You're coming back, into society?
Well, what's interesting is because now God's going to come into play here even more, because my wife had started coming to the church, to our church.
Yeah.
And 2 months before I got out of, 2 months before I went to prison. So she locked into the church, and I went to prison. So then all this time I'm in prison, my wife is in church. And all this time I'm in prison, I'm going to church over there. So to make a long story short, the bottom line is that the doctrine that I learned in prison was not the doctrine that my wife was learning out here. Yeah. And so then when I walked out of prison at the age of 40, I had literally a plan on paper of what I was going to do, how I was going to start my own business, how I was going to start my life in general.
Yeah.
Within the first week, I got my driver's license, got my Social Security, got my first job, and I got a vehicle from my uncle for $1,800. An old truck, for $1,800.
You had a license, a car.
Yeah, and I was going to work, and I was on my way. Because the goal was to work for a year or two to just start learning, again, the remodeling trade. I opened the phone book on day one of my release. Okay, day two.
Yeah.
And I found 3 remodeling companies. And I called all 3, got an appointment with them, and I interviewed them on the same day. 2 of them gave me a job, and I just took one.
So now you're working, you're with your family now. And so when did you actually take the step to start your business?
So the goal was to work for a year or two, build a little bit of capital, because I learned that you need capital to start your own business. But the job I got, 1 month after I got hired, I got fired. Supposedly because I was too slow. And I can see that. I was rusty, man. I remember putting sheetrock or something. But anyway, they fired me.
That's interesting you say that because, we can look at your life and look at, you coming out of prison and all that stuff. And there has to be some struggle, some failure, some, hiccups, that.
There's a lot.
So what were those things and how did you overcome them?
Well, my ability to never give up is really, I think that's a God-given gift that God gave me. That's what I try to teach people. I don't know how to get that in you, your drive, but you have to have a drive to, no matter what happens. And I had it, still do. So they fired me a month later. At 8 o'clock in the morning, I was already fired because I used to go at 7 in the morning. Call my wife, hey, babe, they fired me. She said, well, what are you going to do? I said, you know what? I'm just going to start my own business. That same day, brother, that I got fired, I ordered business cards because I had a plan. Because the plan was to order business cards, put an ad in the paper. We still used to put ads in the paper.
Yeah. The tongue square.
And I knew what I was going to put. Ceramic tile installation, free estimates. I put that in the paper. I got my phone and an answering machine. And I got my first job with my mom. Because she told me, when you start your own business, I want you to do this. Add a little bathroom to her house. Wow. And that's how I started my business.
Wow. So CQR has been around for 22 years.
22 years.
Well, what would you say were the biggest hurdles for you to overcome? Mm-hmm. Because now you're there with your family. You know, now you're trying to be a father, a husband, a provider, and now you're starting a business. And so what would you say were the biggest hurdles that you had to overcome to keep you from going? I know you already talked about desire and that never to give up, but what are some practical things that you had to deal with?
My biggest obstacle was myself, trying to do things my way. I guess because I never was able to find a mentor or people to help me and guide me, or that I want to believe or trust. In the church, when I walked into church, I didn't have anybody to guide me.
So would you say you struggle with trusting people to speak into you or to give you advice?
Well, I don't know if I should say this or not, but I'm going to say it anyway. In the church, there wasn't anybody that was building a business.
Right, exactly. I get that.
So then...
So you're coming.
I was looked at as like weird.
So you're coming into the door, Church McAllen, in 2004.
In 2004,
I'm coming into the door, Church McAllen, in 2004.
Okay,
right. And so I'm seeing the same thing. We don't have any references for business.
Right.
We have great families, pillars.
No, great families, great people.
They
amazing.
Yeah, but there's nobody that I can go to and say, hey, I'm inspired to start a business. What is that like?
Right.
You know, my, one of my mentors came from not being a part of our church, Christian saved and everything, but he at the time wasn't a part of our church. So I get what you're saying when you say that.
Yeah. And so then as I think back.
Basically, there's no spiritual reference at church. How do we do this?
Yes, there's no spiritual reference.
That's the first thing.
That was the first obstacle. Right. The second obstacle is that I didn't understand our church. Remember I told you earlier about that my wife was learning a different doctrine than I was? The doctrine I was learning was about business. I was always trying to find help outside of the church. And that didn't lead me in the right direction. And there was some help there, but...
When you say you didn't understand the church, what part did you struggle with the most? Was it like structure or headship or...
I think, headship. I just didn't see how pastor could help me. I just didn't see it. I didn't understand that. Wow. I didn't understand how powerful that is. Yeah. Today I understand it, right?
Right, exactly.
But at the time, I didn't understand how important it was to get under some kind of covering, a spiritual covering. I didn't have no covering. And because of that, I struggled a lot. I mean, just a lot.
Well, I think it's powerful that you say that, not seeing the value of headship, of your pastor, especially if you're a Christian. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's major, right? But then also you said doing things your own way, a lot of times we're gifted in certain areas where we can be productive, but then a lot of times we can hurt ourselves, from just having this certain type of mentality of how we think we're going to accomplish, and get ahead. Yeah. And so you would say that, was there anything else that you think would be obstacles or?
Well, I think I think to be fair, starting your own business is not easy. No. It's just super hard. I didn't understand. Well, the obstacles were this. Number one, I didn't have guidance from within the church. If I knew what I knew now, I would start organizing my finances in a whole different way. I was always investing in my business, but I didn't know how to manage money. So I didn't know how to manage money. I didn't know how to manage my time. I didn't know how to manage a business, although I had an idea. And then because I was trying to do things my way and not trusting God, not going to prayer, I didn't know how important prayer was.
Yeah.
Things didn't go well.
So how did you overcome those obstacles?
Well, let me tell you a story. A story that I don't like sharing.
Okay.
And I think that this is important to share. It's in my book, by the way, Dead Man Walking, how I went from 10 years of prison and drug addiction to CEO and international speaker. I think it's important to note that as hard as for me to say this, as hard as it is for me to say this and admit this, I went back to drugs.
Wow.
I started drinking within a few months. Well, let me take that back. I started smoking because I was so stressed.
Yeah.
You know? And, stressed because of my wife and stressed because of this and stressed because I was stretched in so many different directions.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Then I picked up my first beer at 18 months. I remember it right at 18 months. And there's a reason for that because my brother was in prison too. And he got out of prison and I went and picked him up. And for some reason or another, I bought a 6-pack and me and him drank a beer. I don't know why I did. Well, I was already thinking about it.
Yeah, yeah.
So then first the cigarette, then the beer, and then the cocaine. And when I touched that cocaine one more time, things just went downhill like this. So I think I touched cocaine like in October. But by December, I'm in a hotel smoking crack. Just 18 months after release from prison, trying to run my business. So then now I'm devastated with myself. I said, how can this be? Big bad me. I mean,
You had a plan and everything.
I had a plan and everything. I remember my uncle, of all people, I don't know, to this day, I don't know why he did that. He came to pick me up and took me to a 5-day detox in Harlingen. And I stood there 5 days. And I was thinking, what in the world have happened to me? Where have I gone wrong? So I remember they gave me a little pamphlet. They told me, here, find one of these programs and start going to these programs. I said, okay. So I found one that was called La Vida Nueva Club. That's what that caught my attention, right? La Vida Nueva Club. Okay. I want a Vida Nueva.
Yeah.
So I went there and it was a CA program, Cocaine Anonymous. I said, perfect. That's my problem.
Yeah.
And so then what that CA program was they used the AA book. And I remember getting there, and this guy named Dan the Man, I called him Dan the Man with a master plan. Dan the Man was a strange individual. If you see this, Dan, I'm sorry. But you know you were strange. But he was a very smart man, super smart. And he came up to me and he told me, Orlando, so you want to change your life? Want to stay sober? I said, yeah. I want to stay sober. I wish I told him everything. Like I'm telling him, like, man, this is crazy. I don't know how this happened. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
He says, all right, I'll help you. I said, yeah, just tell me what to do, brother. Just tell me what to do. I'll do anything. I can't do this. He says, okay. He says, but you have to do what I tell you. I said, okay. He said, are you sure? I said, yeah. You have to do what I tell you or I'm not going to help you. I said, just tell me. I'll do whatever you tell me. Yeah. So he said, okay, I want you to start reading this. So he gave me a little reading from the big book, the AA book. He said, I want you to read this in the morning and read this in the evening. I said, okay, check, got it. He said, then I want you to call me every day, text me every day before 9 a.m. after you read your reading. Check, got it. Then he said, I want you to come to 90 meetings in 90 days. And that's where I looked at him. What do you mean? He says, yeah, you said you would do whatever it takes, right? I said, yeah, but every day? And then he asked me, did you do drugs every day? He got me there.
Yeah.
Needless to say, I did what he told me. So for the next 5 years, I spent 5 years in that program. And I realized, this is biblical. And I'm telling you all that because I never gave up. Because there's more failures after this one.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what I had to do. I was going to do whatever it took to change my life. And so in these 5.5 years that I spent in this program, what it taught me was a lot about drug addiction. But one of the things in the program and why it's so effective is number one, it has a lot of spiritual principles in it. But one of the things, it has 12 steps.
Right.
Well, the 12th step talks about how if you want to stay sober, you always have to be working with somebody.
Yeah.
And Dan Worrell always told me, if you really want to stay sober, you have to work with somebody here. What they were telling me is that I was going to have to be in AA for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
That's what they were telling me.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see that.
Yeah.
By that time, I'm going to church. Remember, I'm going to church also.
Yeah.
But now I'm learning a lot more about the fellowship. I'm not drinking anymore. I'm not smoking. I want to learn more. So now I'm listening more at the church.
You're more receptive.
I'm more receptive. And now I'm starting to understand the power of our fellowship and what's happening. And it's just a lot of great stuff that I'm learning and over here and over here.
Yeah.
But when I got to that point where and I started being more successful in business, if you want to call it that, I never stopped doing my business. I almost quit several times, but I never stopped.
Okay, you came out of jail at the age of 40. You're trying to start your business. You relapse. You go into a program. Now you've incorporated church with AA basically, or CA, Cocaine Anonymous. You're trying to use multiple tools.
Correct.
Right? But when did you get like delivered? Right? Like when did you just say, you know what? The struggles that I used to have with drugs, because now you're about 45 years old. When was
No, I'm about to hit 50.
You're about to hit 50. Okay. So what happened? Like when did you like feel that, you know what? I'm completely delivered from drugs. This is not a battle that I face anymore.
Correct.
You know? So then the reason that I bring that up is when I got saved, I was 22 years old. I surrendered my life to Jesus Christ. One prayer, never to touch drugs again. Cocaine, pills, whatever it was, marijuana. It was a daily usage, but I get saved and one prayer, never was I tempted again. I was delivered, right? So when did that happen for you? And what did you feel that was the reason that you were now delivered from that?
Well, let me give a couple of revelations I got. Number one, the principle of AA about always helping someone is because Jesus said, if you love me, or the greatest commandment of all is to love God and to love others. And so that's the principle they use there. You always have to be helping people, which is a great principle.
Right.
And so then, but I said to myself, I can do that in church. Okay. And so then, but I started thinking, okay, well, what am I going to do? How can I do this? So I started thinking, maybe I can implement some kind of something in church. About that time, Pastor Roman comes into the picture. Okay. And Pastor Roman, he started preaching things that I had never heard behind the pulpit. And I said, man, this is interesting. And there's a lot of detail here I'm not going to go into. All I'm saying is that I started hearing something different in church. And God started working within me about what I needed to do, about what I was doing with my life in general, business, ministry, or whatever. I started thinking, well, how do you get in ministry? People get in ministry and doing this, doing that.
Yeah.
And so a lot of things are going through my mind. I wanted to be a speaker. I wanted to be a speaker. Because the reality is that I had learned in prison that if I become successful, then I can go talk about it.
Yeah.
Right? So that was my idea. But I could never get successful.
Yeah.
So
You were missing the key part.
I was missing the key part. And so then, in any case,
Oh my gosh.
I said, you know what? I'm going to start something in church. I don't know what. I don't know. Yeah. But here's what the powerful that I think you need to really know and the people need to really know. I knew where to start.
Yeah.
In the prayer room. Because I had learned, well, I mean, I've been there 10 years.
Yeah.
I have prayer every morning. I said, that's crazy when I first heard that. But when I started thinking about doing something for God or doing something with my life for God, I said, you know what? I'm not going to do it AA's way. I'm just not going to do that.
But do you feel like there was something that God asked you like to surrender, or that God, like there was a defining moment that God did something where you no longer were struggling, to go back into drug addiction or anything like that?
Okay. So here's really what happened. When Pastor Roman came into the picture, I started respecting that man so much. I said to myself, wait a minute. I want to follow him. I don't want to follow him. That's really what happened. And I got that revelation. That, oh, okay. So is this a man of God?
Yeah.
I believe in this. This is what I believe in.
Yeah.
This is just helping me, but this is what I believe in.
Yeah.
And I understood business, about building, helping others. I understood about leadership. I started understanding these things. And I said to myself, you know what? I can follow this man. That's really what happened. And I had learned that I need to be blessed. If I want to be blessed, I need to have leadership.
Yeah.
Spiritual leadership. I can read a lot of books on leadership, but spiritual leadership, which I didn't halfway understand yet either, but I knew there was something there. And that's why I started in the prayer room and started trying to learn, how do we become a leader here?
I find that really interesting you say that, because, I share with people that, same thing, Pastor Roman's my pastor. And I know that my life is blessed. And the reason that has happened is because of my leadership, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's things that he helps us to understand, whether it's preaching or counseling. And there's a way that he manages his life and his ministry that we, are recipients of that ministry and that blessing. And so that's awesome. So you begin to surrender your life to church, and God started to help you. You started implementing prayer, following under the covering of headship, leadership, and God started helping you, and you begin to grow and all that. And so immediately when you started going to prayer, immediately it was like, okay, I want to do something, and I'm going to start Choose to Change. And so that's how the Choose to Change was birthed?
Pretty much.
So let me ask you this before you get into that. When you started thinking about Choose to Change like that, and you're praying, hey, I want to do something, did you imagine that Choose to Change would be where it is today?
No, not at all.
Okay.
In fact, I just wanted to go. I just knew when I started thinking of when I went to the prayer room, I started praying about this, and I started thinking, what can I do? I want to go back to the prisons, because I knew that there was people just like me, just waiting for somebody to come tell them, hey, this is possible. Come over here.
Yeah,
that's exactly why I started Choose to Change. So I went to pastor, and I told him that I wanted to start going into the prison, and he wasn't. I don't think he was too excited about it. At least that was my impression. Yeah. But he told me, yeah, well, if that's what you want to do, go ahead. So I started going into the prison, but what he didn't know was I was really going to go to the parole office, the people that are out of prison. And that's where the really significance, because people think of my ministry today, Choose to Change, prison ministry. Most pastors listen to that and they think, well, it's just a prison ministry, But my prison ministry is not a prison ministry. It's a ministry for men. But anyway, I started going to a parole office where people were out of prison. And so what happened, here's what's really interesting and why I believe God used my experience in AA to start Choose to Change, is because when I started going to the parole office, in Texas, brother, everybody that gets out of prison has to go to AA. And I said, wow, that's interesting. So my mind is always thinking of how to do things. I'm
Right.
just how my mind works. And I said to myself, what if I had some kind of Christian AA in church? That would be awesome. I can bring them to church.
Yeah.
I said, no, they're not going to go for it. Pastor's not going to go for that. But because I'm always living on the edge, I said, you know what, let me go ask him. So I went and asked him, hey, Pastor, this and this is happening. I'm thinking of this. If we had some kind of Christian program here, I can invite him to church. And to my surprise, he said, well, try it out, see what happens.
Yeah.
So, no, okay. But what had happened, Robert, is I didn't think that far ahead.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought he was going to say no.
Yeah.
And so then, man, what do I do? So basically what I did is I decided to start a mentoring class, because I learned that everybody needs mentors.
Right.
And so then that's how the Choose to Change mentoring class was born. And I started my first class in the children's church.
Yeah. I remember that.
And so I started inviting people, and now every Thursday at 7 p.m. we have a mentoring class.
Wow, that's amazing. And so when we think about the Choose to Change, at least here in our church, we think about the Choose to Change Foundation. We don't think of it as a mentoring class, and we don't think of it as a Christian AA.
No, it's definitely not a Christian AA.
We don't think of it of that. When we hear Choose to Change Foundation, we can directly associate that name with changed lives,
Yes.
with families that are in our church, completely restored. Pastors in our fellowship now, because of this idea that you got to say, hey, what if we can do something to help people? That's powerful. That's powerful, man. And so, you made the choice to not settle, right? You made the choice to not just say, hey, you know what? I am, as long as I take care of my family and come to church, I'm fine, right? And so what can you share with somebody? What can you tell somebody that has settled because of their shortcomings or their failures?
Well, I think that the number one thing that the reason I kept moving forward and still am is because I never really fully defined success. Because success for me was always making money. And not because I was greedy for money. Otherwise, I would have a lot of money. Because I just spent money like it was. I just give, and in my business. So I never saw myself as successful ever. I just didn't see myself as successful. It wasn't until recently, a few years ago, where I finally realized, wait a minute, I am successful. I'm successful.
Yeah.
Now I just want to help other people to be successful. And what I'm trying to do is help men, because now as a Christian, as a Christian organization, Choose to Change, what I'm trying to do is challenge men, because what we need in our society is men to get a revelation of how much they need God and how much we need a church and how much we need a pastor so that we can be better fathers and better husbands and better leaders. That's what we need in our society. Not just to stay sober. I'm challenging men. And that's what I do in Choose to Change. And all I'm asking people to do is, listen, just be a good father. Not a perfect father, just be there for your family. Be a good husband and be a leader in your church. Just by coming. And so then learn how to do those things. And that's what I teach so much in my class.
Yeah. When we look at your business and your organization, right now, you're responsible for, these two entities. There's a lot of moving parts. You got employees, got volunteers, you got all kinds of things going on. How important are financial principles to the success you've had, and when you look down the road to what you want to accomplish?
One of my failures was not understanding money. Actually, seeing money as spiritual, I didn't understand that. Today, I understand it to be that it's God's money. God gave me the ability to do this. And so then I've learned that seeing money spiritually means using your money for good, not just to have it. And for good in your family, in your community, and you do that through your church. That's how I see money today. And because I didn't know how to manage money, number one is how you see money. Number two is how you manage money. And so then I didn't understand about being a good steward with your finances in business, things that you won't learn if you don't look for them. And so then I found out that was my biggest problems. I think I would have had a lot more success had I focused more on that. You can't get around it. I used to think as long as I made a lot of money, that everything would be okay.
You don't have to worry about
it. And that's not how it works. It's what you do with your little bit that really builds the building blocks for greater success.
What does the future hold? What does the vision look like?
Well, my hope and vision is to continue preaching and evangelizing and helping people change their lives. That's my vision. I plan to do this full time. I'm already a full-time evangelist, but I still work. Right. So, and my business gives me that opportunity to do. But I want to leave the business behind and maybe hopefully sell it one day or take it over. Or even, I'm not married to my business. I'd drop it. And the only reason I wouldn't do that just like that is because I have people that I'm responsible for.
Right.
And I don't want to just leave people hanging. But at this point in my life, I'm 62. I tell people all the time, you're 40 and 50 and you think your life is over already.
Yeah.
No. God has more for you.
Yeah.
I've just learned that I need to do it for God, for my family, for my church, for somebody.
In a perfect world.
In a perfect world, I want to, have my sober living home where I'm teaching there, and do more, even bigger than that, and keep evangelizing and speaking wherever they need me. Go do seminars and workshops on drug addiction, and teach people about drug addiction, and continue challenging men and helping families be restored.
I know you got this new program you're starting, or an extension to, the Choose to Change mentoring program.
There's more.
Yeah.
There is more. I'm about to start our support group for family members who have a loved one that's struggling with drug addiction, which is a huge deal here in McAllen and the Valley. There's no support.
Yeah.
People that come to me are usually mothers and grandmothers and wives about how to deal with their drug addicted loved one. And so then we're starting a support group.
Okay, so share that. I want you to share that with me. Like, if give me a breakdown of what that's going to consist of, and what's the benefit of that, and what do you see is the big privilege for families, attending.
Well, so when I started thinking about it, 3 people came to mind: the mother, the wife, and the grandmother, because these are the 3 people that always come to me wanting to know how to deal with their grandson or their husband or their son or daughter that's struggling in drug addiction. And because I understand drug addiction very well, it is so wicked. I mean, it's really sad to watch how, because drug addicts take advantage of their wives, take advantage of their mothers, and they take advantage of their grandmothers. It's really wicked. Yeah. And so then these people get really, really hurt.
Yeah.
And so then coming to a group like this, you get to hear not only knowledgeable people like myself about how to deal with your family member, but you see other people experiences that are going through the same thing. It's really, really powerful deal. Yeah. Plus, because we're a Christian organization, there's real hope, which is in Christ, because only God can help a family member. Only God can help the drug addict. That's all there is to it.
Right. And so this program this class you're going to be having, the support group.
Support group.
This support group you're going to be having monthly, weekly.
It's going to be weekly, and we're going to have it at the same time we're having our Choose to Change program. So now we have a program for the addict or the person coming out of prison or rehab, and we have a program for the family members.
Yeah.
And we call it a program for a lack of a better word. This world likes that word.
Yeah.
The program. And so then I think it's going to be really effective. But then the other thing that I'm going to launch into is that, and doing flyers for this as well, is doing workshops and speaking engagements in other churches and where they would want me to go explain and teach them. I have the 4 phases of addiction that I teach as well. And what is addiction and what is the solution for addiction.
I'll tell you a few things that really inspire me about you.
Help me so I can continue moving.
I'm going to say that probably the first one is your energy, man. You're going 100 miles an hour, not so much in different directions, but in one direction. And that is to figure out how you can help people. And so that's something that is really inspiring to me. You're 62 years old, like you say, and you're working and building, and you have a vision for another 100 years.
Yeah,
and
at least 30.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's something that's super inspiring, man, because it is true in our age, in our generation, we look at 40, 50 years old as like you say, our life's over and God can do so much.
Yep.
And that's inspiring, for me to see. The other thing that is super inspiring when I look at your life is your family. You have an amazing family. You have a daughter that is married to a missionary.
Yeah, both my daughters are married to pastors. One missionary, one in the States.
And so one of your daughters is in Africa, and then the other daughter is in Michigan. You have a son that's doing amazing, really good with going out into the community,
Yep.
being involved, with the Choose to Change program and all that. Your family, your grandchildren. There's just so
9 of
much.
them.
9 grandchildren. Yeah. So when we look at your family and your life, it's an amazing picture.
I'm blown away.
Yeah.
Can I say just something about that?
Yeah, you're good.
So when I go preach and I share my dead man walking testimony, I use the scripture in Luke where Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. I don't remember if it's Luke or Matthew, but which one I use. And he had been dead for 4 days. They called for Jesus. Jesus didn't make it on time, according to Martha, the sister of Lazarus. And Jesus comes, and Martha says, Lord, he's dead. It's too late.
Yeah.
He says, don't worry, he's going to rise again. He says, yeah, I know he'll rise again later in the resurrection, Martha said. And Jesus said, I guess you don't understand. You don't understand. Didn't I tell you that if you would just believe, you would see the glory of God? And I use that scripture because I tell people, one day, a few years ago, I saw a picture of my family. All the grandchildren, 8 at the time. And I look and I realized that's what Jesus was talking about.
Yeah.
The glory of God. And I tell people, my wife and I, we have seen the glory